Hello, everybody. Welcome to It Was Tuesday with your host, James Chen, aka Jay Chenzor. First of all, just want to apologize to the YouTube crew out there. I know content has been coming a little bit slower recently, same with the Spotify and the podcast area over there. Been a very rough couple of weeks for me, so I'm just trying to get my brain back in gear and make sure that, you know, I get back on track and everything like that. So hopefully that should be happening soon. But a lot of interesting stuff going on in the fighting game community. As always, it seems like there's never a shortage of craziness going on. So thank you, Pouty Bonbon. Nice. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So let's go ahead and just jump into the first topic over here. This happened a couple of weekends ago at ECT. And what happened at ECT, what am I looking for over here? This is what I'm looking over here. It was kind of a volatile tournament. There was a lot of craziness that was going on. And, you know, we had upsets out there. Problem X losing to Marine in pools. A lot of people considered an upset, though. I mean, if you've played against Marine a lot, oh man, it's not really that much of an upset, trust me. You know, Angry Bird lost early on in a Ken mirror. Oh, what was the Ken player's name? Oh, I'm so stupid. Like I forgot the Ken player name. It's like completely Young Matt Teen. Thank you. I was like, it had something to do with youth, but I wasn't sure if it was. And I was like, every time I try to like say something like that, I end up being wrong and like people get mad at me and stuff. But yeah, Young Matt Teen upset Angry Bird. These two Utes, these two what? The two Utes. I'm sorry, two what? Oh, excuse me. These two youths. Oh, God, I was just watching part of that movie recently. Dude, it's seriously one of the best movies of all time. If you haven't seen My Cousin Vinny, please make sure you see My Cousin Vinny. That is such a great movie. Holy crap. What a good movie. Anyways, that one Ute came and upset Angry Bird. And, you know, people started talking about that. They're like, oh, my God, Street Fighter 6 is too volatile. You know, it's crazy. This is, Ralph Macchio is in it. He's in it. He's not one of the major characters. That's Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei. Woo, Marissa Tomei. Anyway, but yeah, blah, 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 blah. My brain is so distracted by Marissa Tomei right now. But the upsets, you know, that occurred, you know, had a lot of people talking about that. And so, you know, this is, you know, they're like, maybe Street Fighter 6 is too volatile. See, we need it to be 3 out of 5 because look at this, all these upsets and blah, blah, blah. And then that started up all the conversations of the 2 out of 3 versus 3 out of 5, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of people are saying maybe we should switch to 3 out of 5. Street Fighter 6 needs to be 3 out of 5 the whole entire way because we've had this conversation a million times. We talk about it a million times. And again, the answer, there is no right answer, right? There's literally no right answer. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve, right? But before we even get into that conversation, let's talk about tournament upsets. You can't let tournament upsets like affect how you feel about a format. Like literally you can't, right? Like the tournament is running the way it's running, and if an upset happens, that just happens. Like it happens every once in a while. And you know what? It's good. It's good. We want upsets. We want play, because like, except for me, because I suck at names, but a lot of people are going to remember, you know, Young Matt Teen's name now because, oh, that's the guy who upset Angry Bird. That's how you make a name for yourself. The whole point of entering tournaments is to land the upset, right? Unless you're the top players, everybody else is an upset. And how do they get to the point where they could be a top player? It's by upsetting somebody, right? Like every player who first showed up and started playing tournaments who is now a top player started by upsetting people, by beating people they're not supposed to beat, right? It's supposed to happen that way. I mean, like, obviously sometimes it happens and they can't stay consistent enough afterwards, but, regardless, it's good to actually see, these players achieve this kind of victory. And again, if we're so mad at upsets that we want to change the format of a tournament so that there's fewer upsets, what's the damn point of running the tournament? Why don't we just let everyone advance based off of reputation? The reason why all these top players have to play everyone in the beginning is because there's a chance they could be upset. That's why we play those matches. Like, literally. That's why we play every match. That's why every top player has to start in pools and get out just like everybody else. Because you have to do that. And, of course, it also creates great stories. The John Choi route, losing in the first round and making it all the way to grand finals and winning, right? Like, you create storylines this way. And, I mean, look at the Singapore, right? Ending Walker got sent to loser's bracket very early on. And he made top 8. Or did he make top 9? He was right there. He was definitely in top 16. He just made it through all the way through the losers bracket route. Original gamer, it's always going to be the John Choi route because that's what... Oh, I see. Just win LCQ. That's the Nemo route. Yes, that is the Nemo route. So again, like, you can't argue to change the format of something because a top player got upset. That's the whole point of running these tournaments. That's why when, some scenes are like, oh, you know what, the highest players, the strongest players, they shouldn't have to play pools. They should just skip pools. And it's like, no, no. The whole point is that they can be upset at any time and they have to be on their game and they have to be consistent. It happens. It happens. And you know what? That's why it's double elimination as well. Because if that happens to you, you still have a chance. You still have a chance to still win. You have one leeway for a complete brain fart match if you are the favorite, right? And it happens sometimes. And again, it's good for the tournament. It's good for the community. When Punk entered that NA West Finals for Street Fighter V and, was able to beat Justin Wong and got to Grand Finals and eventually lost to Tokido, like, that was an upset. Like, the time that Punk was doing all that stuff, those were all upsets. Him getting to Grand Finals was an upset. Nowadays, if Punk loses early, we'd be like, oh my God, change the format. It's like, dude, like, he got to this position by being the upsetter at one point as well. So no one should beat the players I like. It's not their fault that they lost. Yeah, exactly. It's the kids who are wrong. I mean, like, honestly, like, it is a lot of times that's one of the reasons why people get salty about that. Obviously a lot of people, so let's take out the upsets. Let's take out the concept of upsets from the equation. Now the equation, let's just talk about the first to 3, first to 5, right? 2 out of 3, 2 out of 5. Street Fighter 6 is very volatile. It's easy to get corner carried and mixed once or twice and die, because that's the nature of this game. And so a lot of people have been arguing for 3 out of 5, not necessarily because of updates, but because they just feel like the game is really volatile. And we've seen a lot of games do that, right? Like, people were mentioning in the chat that, like, MK is 3 out of 5, right? Like, some games that feel like they shouldn't even necessarily be 3 out of 5 are 3 out of 5. And it's very weird, right? Like, some games, I swear, don't feel like they really need to be 3 out of 5. Honestly, some of them are very, very long kind of games. And then the freaking Vampire Savior community won't go 3 out of 5. I've seen 2 out of 3 match. I've seen entire grand final sets fit in like the the 2 minute and 20 second limit of Twitter, dude. It's crazy. But they won't do it, dude. They won't do it. But, you know, 3 out of 5. And again, it just depends on what you're looking for, right? Because this is the thing, right? Every format of every tournament is a different style. It's a different strategy. Remember when SBO was a big deal in Japan, it was the premier. It was basically the Evo of Japan. But SBO was, you can't change characters. You pick your character at the start, sing one game, single elimination. That was it. And it didn't lose the prestige. Like, very few people were like, well, I don't want to win SBO because that's not legit at all. Like, people still tried to go to SBO and they tried to win, right? They literally tried to win. SBO also had a lot of team tournaments, so that actually kind of fixed it up. But again, it just depends on what you want, right? So some people are like, what's more legitimate to show who's a better player? First to tens or, beating 7,000 other people in a weekend for a tournament. And again, they're all legit. They're all part of it, right? Like, all of them is everything. Every format of every tournament that you run is a legit way to run it. It just depends on what you want out of it, right? If you want super consistency, yeah, then you make it so that, it's more matches. But even still, like, it's kind of weird because, like, it can be consistency, but also, like, you've seen so many situations where someone will win, like, well, see, that's the thing. It's like, if someone wins 3 games in a row, and then the other person wins 3 games in a row to tie it up, and then they keep going, and then eventually the person who was down 0-3 wins, a lot of people see, like, see, he adapted. He's the better player. But at the same time, he kind of came in unprepared. And if it was 3 out of 5 and he lost 0-3, he wasn't prepared, right? So is he the better player? He's a better adapter, maybe? Or, it's different skill sets. It's different skill sets. So there's so many different factors. It lost prestige because of cicadas in the sun. Because the last SBO, clearly they stopped budgeting for it. They didn't care as much. It was outdoors. It was bad. So that's a whole nother conversation and such. But again, it just depends on what it is that, you want your tournament to be. Now, the one thing that is argued largely, and I've talked about this on this stream before, so pardon if you've heard this before, but 3 out of 5 also means less streamed matches, right? This is another major factor. People don't realize that happens, and so they're like, oh, well, just run a second stream. Sure, let's just run a second stream. Too easy, right? And again, you're right. That is a solution. Costs money, right? Any sort of solution for any stream or any tournament, when people are like, just do this, that usually means more money, right? And then people are like, why aren't these tournaments putting more money into the prize pools? Because you wanted a second stream. And it costs a lot to do that. And most people just watch the primary stream. Me and David know this because at EVO, we're always commentating the second stream and everyone's watching the first stream. Like, honestly, like, it's crazy. But again, if you have 3 out of 5, you'll have less matches, right? A lot of people are always mad. Why did this match happen off stream? This was a big match. Well, it was a loser side match. Oh, but it's Daigo. You gotta watch Daigo versus, Tokido, even if it's a loser's match. No, because, you have to pick matches that are on stream, and if you only pick the popular players, that sucks for everybody else. So you kind of do an unbiased viewpoint in which you stream mostly winners side matches, right? Because that's your reward for continuing to win, is you get to stay on the winner side, so you get to play. But if you're 2 out of 3, you get a lot more matches in an hour block than you do if you stream, if everything's 3 out of 5, right? So, a lot of people complain about we didn't get to see match. And 3 out of 5 actually exacerbates that problem. And sometimes, when you're watching these matches, it's like this guy just blows this other guy up for 3 games in a row, or he blows him up 2 games in a row, makes a mistake, loses game 3, and then just destroys him game 4. Did you really need to sit there and watch that for 4 games, or could we have just watched the first 2 games and moved on and go to another match, right? So again, it's from a streamer standpoint and from a viewer standpoint, there is more variety and more enjoyment factor out of 2 out of 3. Obviously, 3 out of 5 is a player thing, right? And you definitely want to make sure players are happy. But, this is one of those things that when it's 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 3, everybody's going through the same shit, right? And so, there are some players who adapt faster than others. There are some players who are just more oppressive at start than others. And why sometimes those Punko, Danger Seth strategies that Punko has, or like Mena RDs just like completely rush down Zangief, are valid strategies because you don't give your opponent a time to adjust. If you know it's 2 out of 3, you can just kind of be like blah and just destroy them. The Gamble Seth kind of strategies that Punko has, the Cero Blasts and the Noah the Prodigies, etc., etc. They have the ability to just overrun you before you even have a chance to think. And that's a legit strategy. But if every match was like 1st to 5 or something like that, you'd have to reconsider how you approach it. So again, it's just different, man. And different tournament formats reward different kinds of strategy. And you know what? The best player is the one that's going to be able to succeed at the majority of them. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what format it is. If you're good at the majority of them, you'll be like, whatever, bring it on. I'll succeed no matter what. And isn't that the mark of the strongest player, right? I will win no matter what. Like that's the important one right there. Now, again, as a fan of the game, as a fan of the genre, would I like to see 3 out of 5 every match? Like when we're in the top 16 of the Singapore premiere, a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I kind of want it to be 3 out of 5 because I want to see these two just play longer. Like if you're at top 16, you're not skipping any matches. The broadcast will be a lot longer for top 16, okay, for one thing, if you go 3 out of 5. But at the same time, you're just like, okay, these are great players. I just want to see them go up against each other more because I really enjoy high-level Street Fighter. So, if you talk to me as the fan of fighting games, as the fan of Street Fighter 6, I'd be like, yeah, at least make top 16 3 out of 5, maybe even top 48 3 out of 5. I think that's a fair kind of thing, but right now, obviously, with everything for CPT, it's just top 8 is 3 out of 5. Everything before that is 2 out of 3. And like I said, as a fan, I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to see 3 out of 5 because I just like watching these players fight against each other, and I love adaptation. But at the same time, if you are a, TO, or if you're running an understanding, like time constraints, you have to worry about overstaying a venue and paying late fees and, all sorts of crazy things like that, you're going to make some interesting decisions, such as going to top 6 instead of top 8, because people don't realize, like, the 1 year that Evo went long and we stayed way longer than we were supposed to, like, that's not just something that's like, oh, bad Evo, pay us an extra $200. Like, holy crap. I don't even know how much the late fee is. I don't want to know how much the late fee is because I don't want to be depressed. Okay? I don't want to be depressed. But, that's just a thing. There's a lot of factors involved. And so, it doesn't have to be run 3 out of 5, in my opinion. I will say a player like Problem does better over longer games. However, players have to be able to adjust and be skillful no matter the constraints. Yeah, absolutely. And then as a European, I'm fine with shorter tournaments. ECT stopped at 4 a.m. Singapore started at 4 a.m. My sleep schedule. Yeah, basically. Oh, man. The late fee is Sony's problem? That's not Sony's problem. The late fee is not Sony's problem at all. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, it is not their problem at all. Would it help to say things if, say, all matches were recorded for, say, YouTube and Twitch streams remained as they are? Yeah, you could do that. You could record off-stream matches and put them out officially on YouTube. I think a lot of it is that a lot of times they don't record the off-stream matches and put them onto YouTube because there is also that kind of really cool factor of, players or content guys, recording the matches themselves, putting it on stream. Look, I got this footage, I'm putting it on Twitter. And there's kind of a neat thing to that, and almost kind of like a throwing a bone to some of the content creators a little bit. But absolutely, I mean, some tournaments have tried to do that before. There was tournaments where they had a recorder at every station. They tried to record every match, and they tried to put every match out on YouTube. You know what happened? None of the matches made it onto YouTube. Because it's a lot of fucking work. It is a lot of fucking work. That is a lot of matches to do. So it didn't really happen there. I actually was not thinking of that tournament, Mike Lee. I was not thinking of that tournament. So no, I was not making fun of Bronson. I've already given Bronson enough grief in his life, so I will not do that anymore. Oh, man. Right, David. So like I said, I wouldn't mind if it was first to 3 from top 16. But the reason why it's not changing is because Capcom Pro Tour has been first to 2 for top 16, first to 2, top 16 this whole time. If you change it in the middle of the season, that's kind of sucks. Like, other players would be like, what the fuck, man? Like, I could have used that, in my tournament, because then I would have tried my secondary in the second game and I would have learned more. But, like, it's like, I'm not sure if you want to do that in the middle of the season, right? So I think that's kind of, where we're at right now. That's what we're thinking about right now. God, I forgot about that dedicated YouTube channel for, like, Third Strike replay and stuff like that. I forgot about that. Jeez, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? But yeah, so again, like, you want to feel like everyone qualified on the same merit. So if it's going to change, we'll probably change it after this year. We're already late enough in the year that let's just leave it at first to 2 until top 8, and then we'll think about it next year, right? But again, if you do that, the broadcasts are going to be longer, so the commentators who are doing like top 16, will be commentating longer. God knows they're not going to get paid more. But we're going to be commentating longer hours, et cetera, et cetera. And so, you're going to have less matches on stream. The stream is going to last longer. So, it's just how it works right there. So there's just a lot of factors to it, right? And it's not as cut and dry as being like, hey, it's first to 3 because it's more fair, blah, blah, blah. And again, if your argument is that you don't like seeing the upsets, well, the truth is you don't like to see your boy get upset, because if your boy was the one doing the upsetting, you'd be fine with the 2 out of 3, right? You'd be like, it's like if your boy you're rooting for upset somebody, you're not like, well, that sucks. I don't think he would have my boy wouldn't have upset him if it was 3 out of 5, like you'd be like, yeah, let's go. So, and again, upsets are the heart and blood of the fighting game community. 1 quarter, 1 play. 1 quarter, 1 play. 1 credit, 1 play is the best way to say it, right? Arcade. You put up your quarter. If Vi is killing everybody, you want to be the person to upset him, right? And so you put up a quarter, you get to play. That's it. That's the rule. And so you enter a tournament, you get to play. And what's the point of entering these tournaments? I mean, like, people are always like, I suck, I don't want to enter the tournament. And everyone's like, you should do it for the experience and the fun and blah, 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 blah. But if you get mad when upsets happen because you never want a person who is perceived weaker to beat a person who is perceived stronger, what's the point of the tournament? Why don't we just base it off of the seeding and just let grand finals happen, right? Like, what's the point? We want to see upsets. Upsets have to happen for the community to survive, right? Because with the upsets, that's what creates, I mean, look what happened with Boos, right? Or Buse, or however you pronounce his name. from the East Coast, because on SFL I've heard them pronounce it like 5 different ways. Like he showed up, he just beat Knuckle Dew, and everyone was like, "Who the crap is this Ken? Who's like beating Knuckle Dew and like TNS and all this stuff?" And then he just became consistent. Now he's on Street Fighter League, right? Like that's the whole point. When Boost first started beating people, it was considered an upset. How did he beat Knuckle Dew? And people like just wrote it off, you know, but then he stayed and remained that way, was consistent, and now he's in Street Fighter League. That's the heart and blood of our entire community. The upset is such an important factor in our community. Without the upset, we don't get new players. Period. That's it. So we cherish the upset. We get hyped for the upset. If you're rooting for the player who got upset, you're definitely sad. But clearly that person has upset people along the way, and now they're super great and consistent, and you get to cheer for them at multiple tournaments. But if nobody gets upset, we're never going to have new players, and we don't have a scene. You don't have a reason to try to keep getting better. Right? That's the thing. We've always said, like, you can admire Daigo all you want, but if you get stuck in a pool with Daigo and you fight him, you know, give it your all, dude. Like, believe that you can beat Daigo, because then you will be the guy who upset Daigo in the pools. And it would just, like, that's awesome. Like, you know, the FGC, it's always been about, I want to beat the top player. We've lost a lot of that with the fandom culture and such like that. But like the history of our community is, I want to beat the best player. I can beat the best player. Give me a chance to prove that I can beat the best player. And while, you know, we've kind of moved a little bit away from that, but it's still there. And a lot of people out there still want to get to that point where they can beat those players, and I think that's important, and I think that's awesome. It's a great mentality, and that's what will keep the fighting game alive. And you know, I've often said it, like, although I totally get why people like exhibitions in the fighting game community, but open tournaments will always be the true spirit of the FGC to me, because everybody has the same chance. Everybody has an equal chance. All you have to do is pay the entry fee or sign up on StartGG if it's a free online tournament. That's it. And you get to play, and you have the same chance as everyone else. You know, granted, you'll be like, I don't have the same chance as Punk. Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because Punk decided to dedicate himself to the genre, and you didn't dedicate yourself the same as them. Right? Like, it's just like all the people, like, you know, who are like, oh, I deserve to use AI art because I can't draw like these people. Well, fucking go to art school and practice every single day of your life for like 10 years, and you can draw the same as them, okay? Like, these people didn't get it out of nowhere. So, fuck your AI art. Fuck your excuses, and please go respect the artists out there who are actually taking their time to draw and learn and learn a craft, okay? There's no shortcuts here, okay? AI art is not your fucking shortcut so you can be lazy and create really bad art. Anyways, yeah, so again, upsets, they have to happen. They have to happen. They are a key factor in the fighting game community. So that's addressing the upset factor even outside of the first of two or first of three, right? I mean, people are using it as a reason to argue for the 2 out of 3, and I'm sure a lot of people out there aren't like, I never want upsets to happen. But, you know, when you take that upset and you use it as a reason to change the format, there is a form of, you know, you're not happy with it or you think something is wrong. You know, I'm not saying that you think upsets never should happen and you'll be like, James, that's not my point. Like, I've never said I want. I get it, right? So me arguing that upsets have to happen, I'm sure most people would agree. So, you know, but, you know, in case for those people who aren't thinking about it clearly, I'm just saying it out loud for the, it's an obvious thing, but again, upsets have to happen, honestly. And yeah, 3 out of 5 in pools would take forever. Oh man. Okay, yeah, and that's the other thing too. When you schedule a tournament, you schedule it based off of the longest worst case scenario possible. So if you schedule a pool with so many players and you just assume every match is going 5 games, 3 rounds each, end of the timer, the amount of schedule that you got to have way more stations, and again, it's money, right? Like, it's always money. So they could do it would just cost them more money. That's all. So and a lot of TOs aren't making any money. Like, most of the TOs out there are still losing money out there. Don't let anybody fool you to think that these TOs are raking in the cash, because it's definitely not happening. So, I used to hate playing in the arcade, hoping to clock the game, and then someone comes along, puts money in slot, challenges me, and beats me. Now he's taken over from all my hard work against the CPU. Yeah, I mean, what's funny is that, like, if you go to Hey Arcade in Japan, there's the 10 yen, well, now 25 yen ST machines, and that's where all the hardcore players play. But then there's the other ST machines off to the side that are literally designed to be non-challenge machines. It happened at a lot of arcades too, where they would have the sweaty machine, and then they would have the casual machine off to the side, in which people would actually just play against the arcade, and you kind of knew not to challenge people on those, or you would ask them, hey, can I challenge you? On the sweaty machine, on the real man machine, which is where I was at all the time, you were just like, everybody challenged everybody. So yeah, I mean, Arslan Ash showing up and winning that Evo Japan, that was an upset at the time, right? People were surprised by that. Now it's just like, whatever. But, as a Tekken player, I would hate first to 2. I mean, it's crazy because I don't even think Tekken needs to be first to 3. I really don't think it needs to be first to 3, to be honest with you. Although, people will argue that maybe Tekken 8 needs to be first to 3 because of heat mechanics. But I mean, Tekken already has so many damn rounds, right? Like, it's already, yeah, exactly, 3 out of 5 rounds. So Tekken of all games would be the most justified to be 2 out of 3, because you already get 3 out of 5 rounds in that game. But, when you argue for a format, when you say, I want 3 out of 5, I want 2 out of 3, like, and again, this is not how people work, so this will never happen. But when you argue something like that, you have to argue it as, I prefer. I would enjoy this more. Not necessarily, this is right. Again, tournament format is right no matter what you, like, if the tournament says, I want to run it this way, you let them run it this way, right? And sometimes it's not the greatest thing. I've talked to tournaments before being like, hey, you're running this in the wrong order. We did that at EWC when they would play the winners finals and then the losers finals right away. And the losers final, the person who lost winners finals lost like every single time, right? And so I brought up that concern. I'm like, you should change it. They can't change it in the middle of the tournament, right? Because it needs to be fair to everybody, et cetera, but it's something for them to consider. You can argue these things. You can say, here's my reasoning for this. But, there's logic on both sides. It just depends on what the TO wants to do. That's it. It just depends on what the TO wants to do. So, let's just say on the math that changes. Okay, that's great that you brought that up, Lurker Spine, because I wanted to talk about that. One Frame Link has a bunch of data on a bunch of matches that went 3 out of 5 at a lot of tournaments. They don't have a lot of early pool stuff, so they can't really compare it early on to later. but they said that 85% of the matches would have had the same result if we changed those 3 out of 5s to 2 out of 3s. The person who won 3 out of 5 typically won the first 2 games. And that, logically makes sense, because if you're up 2-0, 2-1, the probability of you winning is significantly higher. But, that might be like, what, 3/4, 75%, but it's 85% more, that the same person would have won. Now, a lot of people are like, see, it's only 15%. It's not that big of a deal. But a lot of other people are like, 15% is huge. Like, if you play in a tournament and you play like 8 people, like, that's one of your matches that you might have lost that you would win if it was 3 out of 5, right? And that's a big deal. I mean, one, not very many people actually get to play 8 matches in a tournament, right? I mean, most of the time, most people barely get to play like 3 or 4 matches. So it doesn't affect the majority of people, but they're not wrong. Like 15% is statistically high. Like if you were going to eat a gummy bear and was like, 0.01% of these gummy bears is poison, and you might be like, okay, I'll, like if you had a gun to your head, you would just do it. But if you're like, 15% of these gummy bears are poison, you'd just be like, shit, man. Holy crap. It can be, right, exactly. And that's another thing, too, is that it's both big and not big because people play differently in 3 out of 5 and 2 out of 3, which I've said, right? Like, I literally said that the strategies are different for the 2 different formats here. So, again, 15% might not justify it, might justify it. But again, it's just like, I don't think it really matters as much. It just depends on what you want out of your tournament, right? If you don't like 2 out of 3 for top 16 or 2 out of 3 for semifinals or whatever like that, you just don't watch the tournament, right? You don't support the tournament or something like that. But, you have to, like, it's working. It's fine how it's going. And then, of course, if you're part of CPT, like I said, they just don't want to change in the middle of the season, honestly. So it would mean more if every player played the same number of matches per tournament. Yeah. Impossible. But yeah, for sure. But if we do that, now we're running into like tennis levels of like, this tournament's going to last 2 weeks. Do you know how much exponentially the number of matches you play increases if everybody actually played the same number of matches? Holy crap. That's crazy, dude. Oh, right. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Step Back. You're not talking about like the wins and losses, but the statistical data would mean more. Yes, absolutely. The stats would mean a lot more if everybody played everybody. Yeah, if everybody had the same number of matches. That is 100% true. So I get it why people want 3 out of 5. Because like I said, at the highest levels, I want it just because I want to see more matches. And I just want to see the players be better. I just want to see the players play amazing all the time. And it's cool. And sometimes when a match goes super fast, 2 out of 3, you're like, man, I waited for this matchup. I was so hyped for this matchup. I wanted more. But, when they lose 3 out of 5, you're like, okay, you know what? That's that guy's fault. You're like, okay, whatever. Sometimes you feel like 2 out of 3, like, I totally could have watched more amazing matches. So, yeah, from a player standpoint, of course you want 3 out of 5. You want more chances to be able to win, right? I mean, honestly, if you think you're better than everyone, that's never going to be more chances for them to beat you. That's just more chances for you to make up for mistakes, right? So that's how you have to think as a top player, right? That's just how you have to think. So, I get it. But like I said, there's a lot of things that go alongside that. And so it just, if you really want it changed, be vocal about it, but, bring your arguments, bring your perspective. Understand, this is labbing. This is fighting game labbing, right? If you go up to a TO and you're like, it should be 3 out of 5 for top 16. All you figured out is that you could delay jab to beat this mix-up. But you didn't lab like the entire counters that they have to your counters. So like, oh, they can blow up delayed jab by doing this. You didn't actually lab that, so you die to that. You know, like, it's not good enough to just say, this is how we should fix it, make it 3 out of 5. You have to understand the downsides to it. Time, length, number of matches on stream, stations, scheduling, etc., etc. And so you have to also come up with the solution on how they can continue to run in an efficient fashion without bloating their costs after increasing it to 3 out of 5. Right? If you can come in and be like, I think it should be 3 out of 5. The way we mitigate this is that, you know, if you look at it statistically, here's the data, it would only increase this much time, but if we do this and blah, 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 and maybe we can do this, and I get it, like, oh, if we stream 2 stations, but obviously that would cost more, but maybe the second one can be a pay-per-view, you know, so that they have the first one for free. But if they, you know, if they really want to have that many more matches, they always have the option to pay for the second stream, or, you know, make sure you come up with ideas. Like, come up with logical ways. It's never as easy as just do it like this. Because if you say, just do it like this, and there actually are no downsides to it, they would just do it like that. They would. It's just how it is. So it's just how it is. So Sevius 2, 3 out of 5. God, no, please, no, never, 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 never. All you need to do is just watch Justin versus Steve H back in the days. Holy crap. Just circling back to upsets, do you think Street Fighter 6 is more unpredictable, volatile, and that's why they happen? Or are players across the board just getting better now? There's too many good players in Street Fighter 6. And I will say that Street Fighter 6, I mean, this is another conversation that, oh man, maybe I should have added this here. But, you know, they were talking about guessing in fighting games. There was, you know, somebody tweeted like, so do people who play fighting games just like the amount of guessing there is? And Filament was like, well, fighting games have always had guessing. And then Safe from Canada was like, well, not actually, because it's not really. It's more like educated guessing, etc., etc. So Street Fighter V pioneered the Street Fighter V RPS, the attack, throw, shimmy thing, which is very much a one-to-one-to-one kind of guessing game. Now, the better players are still going to be able to psychologically understand what the other opponent is thinking and feeling and what they want to do. Keep in mind, Virtua Fighter, very heavy RPS kind of game, and the top players of Virtua Fighter love it because it's more about reading the opponents and what they want to do, and the ones who are better psychologically are usually the ones that win. So Street Fighter 6 and Street Fighter 5 both have a lot of that, but, you know, because the game is, you know, is high damage and high momentum, it is very, very possible that, you know, a person can't get upset because they made one wrong guess. It's like absolutely can happen, right? And it's there. So, you know, is Street Fighter 6 a little more volatile? You know, as a connoisseur of fighting games who have been playing fighting games for a very long time, I will say yes. My personal opinion is that Street Fighter 6 is a little more volatile than older fighting games. Is it so volatile enough that we should change the 3 out of 5? No, because a lot of the times when you see the top players in tournaments, it's a lot of the same faces. And frankly, the problem is that we just have too many faces. And so many people, oh, it's not more or less volatile than Street Fighter V, in my opinion. I think they're about the same length of, same amount of volatility. It's hard right now because a lot of people still have nostalgic glasses, but Street Fighter V, I mean, that was one of the biggest complaints, was that you got knocked down and then you died, right? You guessed wrong twice and you died. Street Fighter VI feels the same way. The hardest part about it is that what people feel in Street Fighter V was that the neutral was a little more nuanced because of the lack of drive rush. And again, that's the main part, right? The drive rush is mainly what's changing the difference between people's perceptions between 5 and 6, because it's added a whole new area of mental stack that's super strong, super high rewarding for super low risk. I talked about that all on stream a couple of days ago, so I'm not going to repeat that. I'll try to get that onto YouTube and talk about that a little bit more. But again, would I say the game is a little more volatile than Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5? I don't know, because a lot of these, like, what am I going to say? Third Strike? Am I going to say Super Turbo? Like, good luck blocking Vega, that's a pretty freaking volatile match right there. So it's like, I don't know. Can you say what is more volatile than the other? Like, they're all pretty damn volatile, But, it's just that whatever the current game is being played is the one that you're the most mad at. And so you're the most mad at it, you want things to change because that's the one you're playing. That's just how it is. So, it feels like, obviously, my view of it being a little more volatile also doesn't help that I use a mid-tier character. I'm not using one of the stronger characters. I'm sure if I was playing one of the other characters, I would feel a lot different. But, that's a factor in there as well. But again, it's just not volatile enough to really say, like, if we switch to 3 out of 5, the results would be significantly more accurate. Like, I don't believe that. Because the results would be more accurate to a 3 out of 5 tournament. But the results currently are more accurate to a 2 out of 3 tournament, right? Like, it's just kind of how it has to be said. So, yeah, exactly. Top 64 Singapore, 30 players had a credible chance of winning it. I didn't pick Shuto to win it, right? He was certainly not on my list of people to win it. I didn't pick Nephew to get top 2 either. I'll be honest with you. I was rooting for Nephew. I didn't pick him to get there, but he did. So, like, it's, and again, does that mean it's volatile? Is that wrong? No, like, that just means upsets happen that are not upsets, and that we have a lot of good players, and that's a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing. So, increase the number of Capcom Cup spots, right? Exactly. Just increase the number of Capcom Cup spots. I know you're joking, the emotes there, but just kind of logically say, again, costs more money, more flights, more hotels, more prepackaged, work, all this stuff, more footage to film, etc., etc. Infinite money and time, baby. Let's go. That's the dream. That's the dream, right? Oh, man. I linked someone Guile Win quotes Super Turbo was broken video to try and convince them it's not honest, neutral, and footsie's the game. Dude, they didn't even have a shit ton of... Oh, no, he did that for CVS 2. And I actually added a bunch of stuff. I was like, here's a bunch of things he forgot to list in that game, because there's a lot of brokenness in that game. Yeah, Justin Wong said increase to 64. I would like that. I would love that. I would love 64 players instead of 48 players, and it's cleaner brackets, etc., etc. Of course everybody would rather see 64 players. That also rewards more people for the amount of work that they're putting into the tournaments and stuff like that. Time and money. Capcom Cup already runs like what is it, 7, 8, 9 to 10 days, right? It would have to run more. It would have to run longer. And can players afford to take vacations from their jobs that long? Will people get burned out watching that much Street Fighter for a whole week? Et cetera, et cetera. So many factors in there. So, I worked out that a 64 tournament with 16 groups of 4 plays the exact number of games as the current 48 format, which is 142 games. Right. But remember, the reason why we have the pools is because everybody was mad for people qualifying the Capcom Cup and then playing 2 games and done. Like you go 0-2, that's it. Like your dreams are over. People liked the pools because that made sure that players played at least 4 games total. So all that work they did allowed them to play more games, and it didn't feel as shitty as, oh, I just got seeded wrong and I fought like I'm a Zangief player and I ran into the 2 Dulcims in the tournament, like it's just like, come on, right? So they literally turned it to pools because people complained about the double elimination bracket before, because there's like, these players are playing too few, so they listened to the people, just make it pools and round robin. So they did. And so if we go back to a double elimination, people are going to be mad again. They're like, oh, these guys only played 2. Like, why don't you just bring it back down to 48 players? Dude, like, oh my God. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Oh, man. Well, again, people have to realize, John the Automaton, is that avatar items and battle pass collabs and money like that, there's nobody out there that said that money is tied to Capcom Cup. If that money is tied to actually programming DLC, though they have nothing to do with each other. Understand that CPT, esports, Street Fighter 6 esports is a completely different department than the people who are making battle passes and avatars. Companies don't work in a way that there is a giant pool of money and you're like, you get some, you get some, you get some. No, you budget the avatars and the battle passes. Here's how many people to work, because we have estimated that this amount of people can produce this amount of content, which we estimate will sell for this much money, which should cover the next DLC, and continue to pay these guys to keep doing this. This is how budgets work in businesses. Budgets are never about, here's money, where do I want to put it? Like, all money is already accounted for beforehand unless there's excess. If the avatars and battle passes were spilling money everywhere, maybe they'd be like, hey, let's take some of it and move it here. Or they might say, let's make it 5 DLC a year because we can hire 2 more people, right? Then people would be like, I'm so happy we're getting that. But that's not money allocated to tournaments. So, again, that's not how it works. Just because Capcom makes $1 bazillion from Monster Hunter has nothing to do with Street Fighter 6. And just because battle passes and avatar items are making money has nothing to do with CPT. These are all completely separate departments, and it's, one of the toughest things. Now, obviously, they're going to collaborate with each other and do things as best as possible. But again, that's just not how a company works. And that's the one thing that we have to understand as well. A lot of people always like, what? Wait, that's why when you say like, oh, you know what? That's not that, like, late fee is Sony's problem. No, it's not Sony's problem, because Evo literally was owned by RTS, and RTS tells Sony, we can run Evo for this much. And Sony's like, why is it that much? And they're like, okay, we'll cut out this part. Now it's this much. This is how much we'll run Evo for. All right, we approve. Here's your budget to run Evo. And then all of a sudden Evo runs late, and all of a sudden the budget shifts to this, and Sony will be like, what the hell happened? And they'll be like, sorry, we ran late. And Sony will be like, well, then that's coming out of next year's Evo budget. And they'll be like, but we want bigger things. It's not that simple. It's not like Sony's like, well, that's fine, Evo. Let me take this money from the PlayStation 5 sales and throw it over here to Evo. You're good. Like, nothing, never has happened that way in the history of business. It's never, ever happened that way in the history of any large size company. If it's a smaller size company, sure, because everyone knows each other and it is all there. But if you're a company like Sony, everything that you've got your games department, you got your consoles department, you got this department, you got that department, you got this department, you got that department. Nobody's money touches each other. So if Evo goes overtime and spends a giant chunk on late fee, that is not Sony's problem. That is Evo's problem. They will either suffer for it, or they will be chastised, or something's gonna happen, Or, like Sony could just suck it up and be like, well, whatever, try not to let it happen next year. But that's not a good look, dude. It's just not a good look. See, I don't want to return a CPT point system because that just benefits the player who already rich can afford to fly everywhere and just scrape points together wherever they can. We'll talk about that in the next section over here. We'll talk about that in the next section. So, some of it has, but it's because of some very complicated accounting, like a losing business is actually contributing in a major way to another business in the same parent, and the losses are really just tax write-offs, but that certainly doesn't apply to Evo, right? There's all that stuff, like, Coyote versus Acme, right? The movie, if you've never heard of that, look it up. It's a movie with Wile E. Coyote that takes place in, like, the real world, and it was created by Warner Brothers, and they decided to shelve it, never release it, and write it off as a loss for tax purposes. And so now we're never going to get to see this movie, which I've heard is actually really good, so that sucks, right? But again, businesses do stupid shit because there's a lot of stupider shit that is happening that they have to deal with, so... yeah, again, PlayStation and their movie departments have nothing to do with each other, man. Nothing to do with each other. So they will, their monies will never actually affect each other. So, okay. So, I don't know how we went from tournament upsets to talking about that. But that almost feels like it belongs a little more in this category over here. But we'll talk about the latest CPT qualifiers. Of course, ECT and Singapore happened. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you tune in to, or just keep an eye on the YouTube, keep subscribing. Again, apologies that the content has been a little short. I've just been really behind on getting all this stuff, uploaded and everything like that. Dude, if somebody out there wants to volunteer to become a time stamper for me, like, I would love you forever. Because that is by far clearly the thing that holds me back from getting these things up quickly right now. If somebody actually is willing to watch an hour video and timestamp it for me, like, you will be my best friend forever. I will get videos up so much faster if I had that, because that is the part that kills me the most. But I will be trying to get everything out as soon as I can. So for those of you on YouTube, thank you for the continued support. And for those of you here on Twitch, don't go anywhere. The second part's coming up. Look for that on YouTube as well, if you didn't get a chance to catch this live. So thank you guys for tuning in for this segment here, all about tournament upsets. And remember that the day this podcast graced your ears was the most important day of your life. But for me,
it was Tuesday.